now, hearing your explanation, I feel like in Japan, students don't have experiences or cannot have experiences. That's why I think, companies have to only care about academic backgrounds.
Right.
So maybe now I feel like the environments or what students can learn in schools or universities or the society can be different in the States or in Japan.
Maybe.
So do you have, some practical, ways to learn about that field while you're students?
Maybe some. It depends on what you went to university for. Like if you went to university for a specific job, like I've been talking about engineering. If you went to university for engineering, you probably get some specific skills. But if you went to university for like an English degree, like just studying literature or something, and then you want to get a job, you're probably not going to get a job in English literature. Probably your job will be, some random company. And then you don't have any skills that matter to that company. So then you just kind of have to get a job in a field that you're interested in and maybe go from there. Like, because people don't always get a job right after university, and because the people that are applying for one job's position are not all recent university graduates, you can get some skills from your job and then kind of use that as training or something for the next job you want. Like, I don't know, before I used a banking example, let's say you didn't go to a good university and study at a good business school, but you want to eventually work for a good bank. You might start at a not so good bank, not so prestigious bank, get some experience there for a few years, and then apply to a better bank, and then do the same thing, apply to a better bank after that, and kind of move up that way, kind of train through the levels of different companies or something like that.
Yeah, so Americans' ways of thinking is completely different from the Japanese ones. So, you guys are trying to move up by changing your jobs or, having a lot of experiences.
Yeah.
That's why, it's different. Because in Japan, they cannot have that kind of, way.
Yeah.
So that's why they, try to get into a good company. But I think the lessons quality, classes qualities in universities are not that good like Americans, I feel. So we cannot learn some practical things. Before I read an article, like in the world, there are, top level universities. And then, not a lot of Japanese universities are not, in that list.
Yeah.
Because one of the reasons the article said the lessons are not really good compared to Western universities.
Okay. Was this
ones.
article in Japanese?
No.
In English?
Yeah, in English.
Okay, that's interesting because I think that I don't know exactly what that list was, but I've seen those lists before of like the best universities in the world, and they're often, a lot of them are American and English and like England as in the UK, and then maybe some other universities around the world, and like University of Tokyo is pretty low compared to like other schools, and I think the reason for that is because a lot of these lists are going off of like academic prestige of the university. So the kind of research that is done at the universities. And
it's mainly in English.
So maybe the University of Tokyo University, which I don't know which you say, but Todai is, they have really good research going on, but if it's in Japanese, the world doesn't know about it.
That makes sense too.
Yeah. So I think obviously those lists are kind of biased toward English
そうよ
research.
ね。
Yeah.
そうなんかよく世界のトップレベルの大学ってこう挙げられて、そこに日本の大学って少ないってよく言われるんですけど、今ライちゃんも言ってくれてたように、僕もそれ昔なんかで読んだことがあるんですけど、いい大学に選ばれるその何個かこう条件として、どれだけ論文がこういいものを出せてるかとか、授業の数とか質とか、なんかいろいろこうあるみたいで、日本のやっぱりそのリサーチって英語で書かれてないですよね。なのでやっぱり世界基準で見た時に、英語じゃない論文だからあんまり認められてなくて、いいものたくさんあるのに、結果的にそのイングリッシュスピーキングカントリーがトップにランクインしやすいっていうのも確かに見たことがあるんですよね。でもなんか自分も大学をこう出た人間としてすごく感じるのは、こう大学で得られる実践的な経験の質っていうものが、なんかアメリカと日本ではちょっと違う気がするんですよね。でそもそもはやっぱりアメリカの社会全体が仕事をどんどん変えることでキャリアアップしていこうって思ってるのに対して、日本はやっぱり仕事をどんどん変えてキャリアアップしていきましょうっていうのがない分、まずそこでなんかこう人の考え方って企業側も学生側も変わってくると思うんですよね。まずそこは違うっていう前提のもと、じゃあ次、大学を、そこの今のお話を置いておいたとしても、学生を取るってなった時に企業側がどこを見るのかっていうと、学歴しか見ざるを得ないような授業の提供というか、こう海外のような実践的になんかこうアクティビティしますとか、こういうスキルを持ってますっていうのを新卒の人がこうアピールしにくいんですよね。なんか日本ってプラクティカルなスキルをそんなに得られなくて、だからこそこう学歴だけでこう見られてしまう。かつ入ってみると仕事をどんどん変えてキャリアアップしていこうっていう概念もないがゆえに、もうその一発目のところからいいところに入らなきゃって思って、そのためにはやっぱ学歴いいものを持っておかなきゃっていう、なんかそのさっき僕はそれ悪循環って言ったんですけど、人のなんかこう考えが凝り固まっていくような思考をせざるを得なくなるっていう。でもライちゃんからするとある意味それはストレートで悪循環じゃないじゃん、いいルートじゃんって言ってくれてたんですけど、何人かのそのいいルートをたどれた人にとってはいいんですけど、ちょっと道を外したりしちゃうともう戻りにくいっていう、なんかそこがこう日本の独特な違いだなっていうのを僕は感じました。でももう一個聞きたいのがね、その最後に聞きたいのが、学歴が高い人って本当に優秀だと思うっていう、なんかこれもすごい聞きたいなと思うんですけど、yeah, so what I was talking about is that in Japan we can't have, a lot of practical skills like maybe American schools. That's why, Japanese people often go to, you know, universities in overseas.
But they don't.
Oh, really?
No. Japanese people have one of the lowest study abroad rates of like any country.
Oh,
in-
I mean,
in the
like,
world.
if we want to learn advanced things, for example, medical skills or
okay.
something, we need to.
Not undergraduate, like
Yeah, yeah.
graduate school.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
And of course, not everybody, but as one of the, students I graduated from university in Japan, it's really hard for us to get practical skills. Like, in the States, you said companies often care about experiences
Yeah.
and practical skills.
Yeah.
But in Japan, we don't really learn, or, we don't have the environment where we can get actual practical skills.
And I think the huge difference there is that we don't really get that many practical skills at university.
Oh, really?
We get them at jobs, but then we change jobs. But in Japan, you can't really change your job. So if you can't get practical skills at university, then you just have to start a job with not many skills and learn skills at that job and then move up through that job. But in America, like you get some practical skills at university, but I think most companies would say that new hires from university are not that good at whatever job they need to do, and they need training after they get to the company. And then they go to one company, learn some stuff there, and then go to a new one where they use the skills they got from their last job.
Then the problem is not about, academic background or practical skills. Maybe not being able to change jobs.
I think that's a bigger problem. I think, in my mind, university is not training for a job. University is education in kind of it's a kind of a form of general education, where I think of education like kind of a pyramid, where you start at the bottom in elementary school. You are learning the most general things, how to do basic math, how to read something, how to read a book. And then as you go through education, your kind of knowledge gets more and more specific. And university is kind of the level that is still kind of general knowledge, but you get to pick one field to study. And then if you want to go to graduate school, that's when you can become like an expert in one field. But I think that kind of education system is, the university is when you get to become knowledgeable, not an expert, but have some knowledge about one specific field, whether that's history or economics or something. But I don't think it's like, because when you go to university, you go to choose a major, right? Economics or history. You don't choose a major like banker or, I don't know, paper company worker, right? You don't get a job, you don't get a major for a specific job. You get it for a kind of academic study that you're interested in. So
then how do you evaluate people's experiences in the States?
Well, experiences in terms of work experience?
Oh, I mean, like, you said for newcomers, companies care about not academic backgrounds that much and experiences. So especially for the starter, what do they focus on?
Well, it's still experience. But the thing is that it's very difficult for someone coming right out of university to get a good job. Because they are competing with people who have worked before. So if you have two people, one person is right out of university and one person has worked at a job in a related kind of subject for a few years, this job will almost always hire the person who has worked for some time.
Then not, students who graduate from good university.
Well, so there's a question there. If, let's say if you have two students and they're both fresh out of university, but one of them went to a better university, odds are most jobs will pick that student. But if you have two people, one of them went to a good university, the other one went to an okay university, but has worked in the same field for 5 years, most companies will pick that second person, the person with work experience.
Yeah, in Japan, there is a kind of different group, like 転職、なんだかな、言葉忘れた。新卒 is newcomers. Like,
Fresh out of university.
Yeah. And then the other one is ちょっとどう忘れちゃった。
Changing jobs.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they're different categories, right? Like they're hiring kind of for like different positions maybe. That's super different from America.
Right.
They're all the same job.
Right. そう、なんかそこもなんか違うんよね。So that's why, students have to have a kind of, good academic background.
In Japan.
Yeah, in Japan. And then, that's a kind of different category, whether or not they have a lot of experience.
Yeah, I guess in Japan, like, you have fewer things to compare. You almost only have academic background. And maybe if they have some, maybe, I don't know, maybe their circle at university matters, or the kind of their whatever they wrote, their final paper, their thesis about maybe matters, something like that. But mostly it's just what university did you go to. But in America, there's all of these things. What work experience do you have? How long have you worked in this field? What company did you work for? And what university? So all of those things are important when you choose who to hire.
そうやんな。だから結局はアメリカは経験がその職に関してあるかないかっていう部分で取られるっていうことだから、仮にいい大学を出てる人と、なんだ、その職を経験したことがある人2人がいた場合、やっぱりその経験がある人の方が取られるっていう。で、日本の場合はやっぱり転職組と新卒組で分かれたカテゴリーで取られますけれども、アメリカはそこ全部やっぱ一緒って言ってましたよね。ってなると話が戻るのが、アメリカではみんな最初はどっかの会社で経験して、つまり最初からいい会社に行こうとかっていう思いもそんななく、まずは会社で経験して、その後経験を経ていい会社に行こうっていう元々のその仕組みが出来上がってるんだと思うんですよね。でも日本はそうじゃなくて、仕事を変えるっていう概念がそこまでポジティブな考えではないので、最初からいいところに入らなきゃっていうところから始まるがゆえに、そんな経験がない新卒の子たちが何のカラーもそんな出せない。じゃあどこで差をつけるのかっていうと、学歴しかないっていうところになってるので、このディスカッションをして僕が思ったのは、学歴を重視するしないとかじゃなくて、転職とかの仕組みをもっと変えていかないといけないんだろうなって、なんか日本に関してはすごい思いました。で、アメリカでは仕事を変えることによってキャリアアップしていくっていうその概念があるからこそ、経験重視で多分人を取れるんだと思うんですよね。でも日本ってそれがないがゆえに、仕事をどんどん変えていい人材を取っていこうっていう、そこが主流ではないがゆえに、ね、そんなに学校でプラクティカルなスキルを学んでなくても、学歴だけでこう判断しないといけない仕組みが出来上がってるんだなと思ったので、Yeah, I think everything comes from, I mean, the Japanese problem comes from the system of not hiring
Yeah.
people who have a lot of experience.
Yeah.
And then they have to, have one job and they
Yeah.
have to stick with that.
Yeah.
That's what I noticed.
And so I want to kind of maybe close by saying, like, I don't necessarily think the American system is better because the American system makes it very difficult to start your career. Like,
Interesting.
it's really hard to get a good job in a field related to what you studied right after university. I know out of all my friends, like, let's say out of 30 people that I know what their jobs are, maybe 2 got a job right out of university that was like related to what they studied. Most people work some kind of job at some kind of company for a while, and then after they have some experience, try to get into a field related to what they did. And so it really also depends on the economy at the moment. Like, if companies are hiring a lot of people, then they will hire some university graduates. But if they're not hiring that many people, then they'll only hire people with a lot of experience. So it really changes how, it's kind of difficult to know that, okay, if I go to university, I will get a job. And maybe in Japan, it's not that certain, like it's not guaranteed, but there's, I think, a better chance in Japan than in America.
Yeah. From that perspective, I think that's true. And, the Japanese system also had some positive aspects. And one is that they can, have the guarantee. And then they can, the companies are kind of growing, raising the, newcomers up.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, a lot of security maybe. So as a starter, maybe it's easier in Japan to find
Yeah.
in terms of a good job.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, I think, the reason why I was kind of saying it's one of the problems, and although there are some positive aspects, though, is that, once we get out of the kind of root or social atmosphere or everything, it becomes harder to get a job.
Yeah.
And then, as you said, students have to study super hard. And then they have to have the extra 1 year for rolling.
Yeah, maybe.
And that happens.
Yeah.
And then also, some people think that academic background is the only thing we need to have.
Yeah.
And then, some students have that kind of mindset too.
And I would say, like, from a company's perspective, I don't think you want that, right? Like, do you really want to hire people based only on what school they went to? Because maybe that doesn't have a big impact on how good of a worker they are.
Yeah, that's the question I wanted to ask you. So do you think, people from good universities have good skills?
Maybe, but maybe not. I mean, I think one thing you can say, especially in Japan, for the most part, if you got into a good university, then that means you are the kind of person who can work hard. Because you can't get, well, maybe some people can, but most people can't get into a good university unless they study 10 hours a day, every day for all of high school, basically, right? Like you need to study really hard. And so if what a company wants is a hard worker, then maybe, yeah, good universities are the way to go. But if you want a smart worker or an efficient worker, maybe a good university is not necessarily maybe there are efficient workers there too, but there could also be efficient workers at other universities, other levels.
But in Japan, companies tend to think like that. Oh,
They
hard
want hard
workers,
workers.
can work hard
Yeah.
or can work well. But yeah, I agree with some parts. Like if they're working or studying really hard, they can work hard.
Yeah.
But that's not everything. And also, I also graduated from high school, like where everybody was everybody was studying super hard for getting into a good university.
Yeah.
And then students' characters were sometimes terrible.
Well, that's another factor, right? Like maybe you didn't have any time to have friends. So you don't know how to interact with people. You know how to study hard, but you don't know how to interact with
And
people.
also, my friends judged, people based on the
their-
study level. So, producing those students is not a good thing sometimes.
Yeah.
That's why I said, it can be a kind of bad part sometimes.
Yeah.
But it has pros and cons though.
Sure.
はい、だいぶちょっと長くなってきたので最後これをね訳して終われたらなと思うんですけれども、ライちゃんが言ってくれてたのがアメリカの仕事を変えることでキャリアを上げていくっていう考え、そこは確かにいいかもしれないけれども大変な一面もあるよって言ってくれてましたね。それはやっぱり仕事の始めスタートする時がやっぱ大変だと。なぜかというとやっぱり経験ベースで人を選んでいくので、大学を卒業したての子がやっぱりこう仕事を見つけるってなるとハードだったりするっていう、確かにそれもそうだなと思いました。っていう点で見ると日本はそれもいい大学に行っていたらっていう条件がもしかしたらつくかもしれませんけれども、比較的こう会社で育ててくれるっていう入ったらそこから育てますっていう風潮があるがゆえに、ちょっとその大学とかに行っていたら入りやすかったりはしますよね。でも僕はそれぞれにいいところは絶対ありますし、日本のそのシステムにいいところもあるとは思うんですけど、やっぱり問題はみんながみんなその平等に、仕事のチャンスを得られるか得られないかでいうと日本って得られにくいと思うんですよ。でやっぱり大学の卒業の資格がないといくら経験があっても弾かれちゃうところもやっぱりあるのは事実で、なんかその入りやすいよっていうのはやっぱり大学に行ってるとか学歴がある人だったりするシステムだったりすると思うんですよね。なので、なんか今日のこのディスカッションしててすごく感じたのはアメリカのすごくいいなと思うのは、仕事を変えていくことでキャリアアップをしていくっていうこの考えを会社全体だったり社会全体が持てば、 もっと学歴にこだわる必要がなくなったり、あるいは会社側もいい人材をもっと取れたりするんじゃないかなと思うんですよね。なんかこうあんまり仕事をバンバン変えるっていう風潮がないがゆえに、人はなんかこう選択肢がこう狭まってしまって、それがゆえになんかこういい学歴を持たないといけないとか、これをしないといけないっていうルールがなんか出来上がっちゃうのかなと思うんですよね。で、一番なんか僕がすごく感じるのは今の受験のシーズンで、僕もそういうこう進学校に高校の時に通ってたからこそ分かるんですけど、なんか偏差値とか大学とかいいところに行ってる行ってないで人の価値を決めちゃう学生の子たちとか高校生とかね、あるいは大学生もそうかもしれませんけれども、あるいは先生だったり大人だったり会社だったり、そういう人も日本はすごい多い気が僕はするんですよね。なんかこういい学歴を持ってないともうダメな人とか、いい大学に行かないとダメって親が決めつけちゃったりとか、日本って僕はそれすごく強いと思うんですよね。もっと自分らしく生きることだったり、なんだろうな、個性だったり経験だったりっていうものを大切にする社会になれば、なんかそういうところでこう人を差別というかこうなんだろうな、こう判断しないようにもなってくるんじゃないかなとも思うんですよね。なので僕も、そういうこう高校に通ってたからこそすごい自分はしんどかったところもあったので、今、このエピソードをね、いろんな視点からこう聞いていただけていたら嬉しいんですけど、高校生とか学生さんとかこれから大学に入学される方、あるいは浪人される方とかにお届けしたいメッセージとして、日本のこの社会ではやっぱり学歴はあった方が楽だったりはしますよね。こう会社を選ぶという点では。でもなんかその学歴があることだけで人を判断したりとか、あるいは大学に通らなくて受験をもう一回するために浪人しないといけなくなったから自分はダメなんだとかって思ってほしくないなと思うんですよね。で、大人もそうですよね。なんかこうもっともっと経験ベースだったり個性というものを大切にして人を取っていくような社会っていうものを作ることによって、会社側にとっても日本社会全体にとっても生徒側にとってもいいんじゃないかなっていうのもあったので、それぞれにいいところはあると思うんですけど、日本とアメリカのそれぞれにいいところからなんかこういいものを吸収してこういろんなところが変わっていけばいいなと思いました。The last message I was saying was that for students who are, studying for one more year or for getting to a university, like it's important that we have to have a lot of experience, not only study experience.
Right.
So as we discussed in Japan, a lot of parents or sometimes adults or companies care about the academic background.
Sure.
And then that means the society or adults judge people based on the study level. And then I don't think it's a good idea. That's why, we need to have one option. And then, we cannot get out of the, route or something. But of course, there are some positive aspects of Japanese system as well.
Sure.
But what I like about the American way is that they focus on experiences more or people's characters.
Yeah.
Then, maybe you guys don't judge people based on the, university level or something, right?
Not so much, I think.
In Japan, it's happening a lot.
Yeah.
So that's why I wanted to add that kind of message as well.
Yeah, I think I'd like to add to that to like high school students who are whether they're going to university soon or they're ronin and they're trying again. I think like now high school and university is a time to grow as a person and not just as a worker. Like if you have other interests, like you have hobbies like I don't know, you like riding your bicycle or you like eating ramen or I don't know, whatever, you have various interests. Maybe you like collecting bugs or something, whatever. I mean, if you have different interests now in high school or university, this is the time to learn about different kinds of different ways of living. it's not just a time to study and study and study and become, a good worker, but you need to also become a well-rounded person. So, have friends and have interests and hobbies and that kind of thing is important too. So I think if you're sacrificing some study time because you're spending time with your friends and having fun or collecting your bugs, that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. And in fact, maybe in the long run, you'll be a more kind of balanced worker than somebody who only studied.
本当そうです。むせたわ。咳でと思った。本当そうですよ。ライちゃんが言ってくれてるように、自分の好きなものね、こう虫集めだったり、なんでバグなんだよ。コレクティングバグズが面白かったけど、虫集めだったりとか、自分が興味があるものをこうやったり。人としてこういろいろと自分を知る機会っていうのがやっぱ高校だったり大学の時間だと思うので、こうあまり勉強とかそこだけで社会がそういう風にさせてるのは本当にあるんですけど、そこだけにとらわれずね、こう学生生活を過ごしてほしいっていうライちゃんからのメッセージですよね。本当にそうですよ。なので学生の子たちがそういう風に、僕も振り返ってね、そういたかったなって思うからこそ、そう思えるような、学生の子たちがそう思えるような社会っていうものを会社だったり日本だったり、そこが変えてしていかないといけないと思うんですよね。なんかこう、例えば塾の教えてる先生とか学校の先生とかでも、ネットとかでも見ますけど、いい大学に行けてない人はもうダメな人だとかって、そういうのを教える先生もいるわけじゃないですか。予備校の先生とかね。なんか本当にこんなんで日本っていいのかなって思うので、こう学歴、ある意味その学歴社会っていうのがね。でもさっきもありましたけど、学歴があるとね、やっぱり一生懸命勉強した証でもあるのでね、確かに仕事ができるっていう見方もあるのかもしれません。確かにそれも一つの見方だとも思うんですけど、やっぱりそれが全てでは本当にないと思うので、それが受け入れられる社会にまずはなってほしいですよね。じゃないと一生なんか学歴社会っていうのは続いていく気がしますから。なので、いろんな方がねこれを聞いてくださってると思うので、これが僕が伝えたかったことなんですよ。冒頭に言っていた受験生、親、大人、いろんな人がこれについて考えてほしいなっていう、意味でした。何分やばない見て、もう一回やった。
Almost an hour and a half.
そう、1時間16分か、もしかしてこれ2つに分けるかもしれませんけれども、皆さん今日のエピソードはい
かがでしたでしょうか。
はい、いかがでしたでしょうか。なんかすごい難しいなと思いながら、僕は個人的になんかこう受験とか勉強とか偏差値いい大学っていう先生とか大人とか、そういう人が昔からちょっとこう合わないなって思ってたからこそ、でも日本を生き抜くためには学歴もある程度持っておかないといけなかったりしたりもするから、僕もある程度やらなきゃと思ったりもしたけれども、なんか大人になって本当に社会全体がそれが変わってほしいなって思うからこそのちょっとメッセージを配信させていただきました。かつライちゃんのねアメリカの情報とかもあって、個人的にもすごいmaybe kind of passionate discussion.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
面白かったなって思いました。はい、また感想の方はインスタグラムであったりツイッターの方に残していただければと思います。僕は、英語のソータという名前でインスタグラム、ツイッター、YouTube やっております。ライリーはライリーソルバン XD。
Yes.
で調べてもらうと出ますし、概要欄にもねリンクは貼っておきますのでご覧ください。で、あともう一個 one episode to go、 もう一個レコーディングして、頑張りたいと思いますので、はい、また次回のエピソードで皆さんお会いしましょう。
バイ。